and it was the longest 12 minutes, certainly of Aaron's life, where I had to just keep him on hold, like, hold on, and then I could tell him we're taking him.
What advice would you give Collin Kaepernick right now if he called you and asked for counsel and said, I'm interested in coming back into the league, I'm not interested in giving an inch in terms of, I've already said, remember, he's already said he's not going to kneel during the anthem, but he said he's not going to stop being the political person he is in terms of how he uses social media and the causes he endorses, but he wants to play in the league. What advice do you give him?
Great question. I've never really thought about it, but I can answer that. I want to be clear on that because I think there was a report a year ago that he would not kneel anymore, but then it was kind of loose later in the year, like maybe not. So I'd want to be clear on that, and I want to be clear on any issues he may have that would affect the team. So if I was representing him, I would be searching for meetings. Mm-hmm. Forget about signing. If there's a team that has any kind of interest, let's meet so they can hear it. And I think the thing about Collin is that he has to be real about money, real about role. We can't, it's not worth debating is he's quote unquote better than all these guys. The thing is, will he accept a backup role? Will he accept backup money? And if that's the best way to get back in the league, it could even be third string coming in. And maybe that's an ego downer, but that's the reality. So the other problem, of course, is the collusion suit. And when that happened, I'm like, he doesn't really want to sue. He wants to get signed, and this is leverage that if a team wants to sign him, he drops the suit. And I'd want to hear a lot more about that.
That's fascinating because there are other folks, and these are folks who I would argue are predisposed to not liking him for a whole host of reasons, who said, you look at the collusion suit, that's proof he doesn't want to play anymore. But you could look at it completely the opposite way and be like, he's fighting to get back into the league.
Yeah, I mean, I see it that way because everything from his attorneys has been he just wants to play. Now, I know, and you raise it. I mean, that's a hell of a way to try to get signed, but I also looked at it
playing
like
for keeps. Yeah,
he's got he's exhausted the ways to get in kind of traditionally. This would be leverage to dropping the suit.
You've been so generous with your time, Andrew. I really appreciate it. The answers are so smart and thoughtful. I have one last question for you. And it's a question. It's one of those Andrew's gotten this question hundreds of times, but I would just love to get you on record on my podcast around it. Because I would argue that when you look at issue, and you could even tell me if you disagree with about this, people say all the time, the NBA is proactive, the NFL is reactive. The NFL seems immobilized a lot of the time about what to do, whether it's around the anthem, whether it's around head injuries, whether it's around the next contract. And I think that one of the things that's immobilizing the NFL is that there's a lot of existential uncertainty about what's going to happen in this sport over the next 20, 30 years. What is it going to look like? I mean, especially if they are as close as they say they are at Boston University to creating a CTE test that can do tests on the living. Where do you see football? I mean, do you agree with that basic analysis, and where do you see football in 20 years?
Yeah, and I'm admitting I'm going to rail against sort of a narrative about the NFL in decline because I look at the numbers, I look at the metrics. First of all, ratings. Yes, ratings are down, but they're the best product on television. There's no other sport entertainment programming that comes near the numbers. You can go through the top 100 programs. There's 64 of them. The top 10, there's 7 of them. The top 30, there's 24 of them. Whatever it is, it's all NFL. There's nothing that's close. So, yes, declining numbers, that's true across the board in all sports, across the board in all entertainment programming. I don't see that as an issue. Head injuries, and I've talked to Chris Nowinski a lot, and I've been a proponent of all that work and talked to many former players about head injuries. But here's the thing. That is a public health issue, and that is a football health issue. That is not a popularity issue in my mind. We bemoan the violence, we lament the violence, but we crave the violence. Whether we think that's good or bad about us as people, as a society, we would not watch the NFL if it were not violent. And there is no issue in my mind that the increase in concussions or the increase in head issues will have any effect on people watching. Now, maybe it has a small effect on the talent pool, but as someone who's been in the business and sees thousands of players trying to get hundreds of jobs, I just don't see that. Here.
I also read something. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Just that I read something interesting that it was sort of like a, oh, by the way, article at the end of the season, because all year I've been debating with people about the decline in ratings. Is it because of overproduction of the product in Thursday night games? Is it because of the Kaepernick effect? What are we talking about? Like these endless debates. And then at the end of the year, I see this article that said, oh, by the way, we don't know yet how to calculate streaming services into understanding how many people are watching.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, by the way, that's how my kids and their friends watch everything.
Right.
I mean,
and Thursday Night Football, which some people thought was going away, just got a huge increase. Fox, which has never been in Thursday Night Football or night football, is now taking over after CBS and NBC had their run at it, and with a huge increase in rights fees. And now that Twitter had a year, Amazon had a year, the NFL diabolically cleverly whet their appetite. There you have these bidding now for Thursday night streaming, as you said, and Facebook and Google and YouTube, they're going to join in. So the NFL is going to be rolling in money from these television products that everyone says are in trouble. Having said that, you just mentioned your kids, my kids, wonder what that TV thing is in the middle of the room. Here's the real problem for the NFL and all sports leagues, and the NBA is doing better than the NFL. How to attract and maintain younger audiences. That's what they should be or are thinking about at 345 Park Avenue. Not so much the old feeling about quote-unquote TV and sort of the mainstream ways of viewership, because this is all changing, as you said. Everything, they've got a Verizon deal with mobile, I think is great. They are recognizing this. They've got to improve in-game. And I don't know what they can do about parking and traffic and concessions and vulgar and loud drunk fans, but they've got to make the viewing experience hip and full of action for younger viewers. I don't know what the future is for consumption because there's just so much choice and change. We have to see where that goes. But I do think the NFL is thinking about it. And the last thing on leadership, it's no secret. I mean, Adam Silver, he's more progressive. He's more receptive. He's more open to change in an area that I've covered as well, gambling. He's been the leader on that forefront. But he's working with a populace that, I don't know, I mean, it's cool, it's hip. Basketball lends itself to highlights better. Basketball lends itself to urban culture better. It's just, it moves quicker. It's like you said, it's more nimble. So I think they're going to continue to increase, but in terms of the footprint, I don't think they're going to come close to football.
And that's, wow. I got one last question for you. I always ask everybody this,
yeah.
Andrew. Unlike some of my other questions, I'm going to guess this is the first you've been asked this, but I'd love to know what kind of music you listen to when you got to get psyched up, whether it's to exercise, whether it's to write something and you need extra motivation. What is your musical caffeine? What is your ear coffee?
Oh, that's a great question because, first of all, I am musically trained.
Wait, what?
I played piano from early on, classical growing up.
Damn.
And now I play all jazz. I've been taking jazz piano for about 20 years as an adult. And I play everything from Bill Evans to Thelonious Monk to standards, Duke Ellington, and I love it. I do not write or work without music. I find it very hard. And it's going to be jazz, or it's going to be kind of, I don't know, it's not quite new age. It's kind of like you said, kind of inspiring music, even classical. You know, when I have something that I really want to focus on, I'll play Adagio for Strings by Samuel Barber. And then when I want to get going, I work out also. I'm a triathlete, and I try to be very clear about my workouts.
Dude, you're a triathlete who plays jazz piano? You trying to make the rest of us just feel bad? I mean, what's that about?
I'll go with more of an upbeat. I'll go with Pearl Jam. I'll go with there's a sort of a jazz guitarist I really like, Pat Metheny. He's got some more upbeat stuff. But I will tell you this on that, you know, I don't want to sound like, I'm living above everyone else. When I left the Packers, this is personal because I had young boys and I just felt like my time was entirely spent worrying about the Packers. And I was nervous. I was anxious about doing these contracts and getting our team. And I remember my wife, and we had our kids asleep in the back, and I was all crazy about some contract negotiation. She said, "What are you so worried about?" I said, "Well, I'm worried about the Packers' legacy. You know, I don't want to leave behind cap mess or anything like." And she looks at me. She goes, "Look in the back seat. That's your legacy. It's not the Packers." So it kind of hit me, and I just wanted a different life. And since then, I've tried to create a presence in media, in academia, and just really give back my knowledge, give back in writing and TV and radio and teaching, give back everything I've learned from 25 years in the business, and then, of course, be around for my two boys. And to finish up with the music, my older son is now at NYU's Clive Davis School of Music, so he has taken that from me, and he is way past me in his musical abilities.
Andrew Brandt, thanks so much for joining us on the Edge of Sports podcast.
Had a great time. Thanks, Dave.
And now I've got some choice words about Shut Up and Dribble, the message from Fox News to LeBron James. Okay. Whatever her name is, this is how LeBron James referred to amateur Fox News host and professional bigot Laura Ingraham. The Ann Coulter mimeograph devoted an entire segment to mocking LeBron James's intelligence and telling him to, quote, shut up and dribble, end quote. It's a tired critique that has been used to shut down outspoken black athletes for as long as there have been outspoken black athletes. Ingram was melting down on air like a certain particle of snow because James and fellow All-Star Kevin Durant had criticized Donald Trump for being Donald Trump. James in particular earned her ire for saying, "Trump really don't give a bleep about the people. While we cannot change what comes out of that man's mouth, we can continue to alert the people that watch us, that listen to us, that this is not the way," end quote. Ingram's goal was to provoke a response and create the kind of buzz that would provide more content for Fox News, content she could then feed into a racist inception loop of coverage about herself. It's a troll move, played out on a major cable news network. My own theory has long been that the best possible response to these people is to starve them. For their species, the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference. Yet in this case, I was very wrong. LeBron James did more than just respond. He provoked a tidal wave of support from his own personal justice league in the world of sports. It started with James, who said, "We will definitely not shut up and dribble. I will definitely not do that. She did the best thing to help me create more awareness. I get to sit up here and talk about social injustice and equality because a woman on a certain network decided to tell me to shut up and dribble. So thank you, whatever